Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to GMU Agenda today, 27th of March, 2023. My name is Philomena Masco. Welcome yet to another informative segment this morning as we start off the week, where we do have conversations that really matter in the wee hours of the day. Well, today specifically, we'll be looking at the East African community or the East African region. Well, you probably have heard this before, but you don't exactly know what it is. You do not know how definitely or why we should be, holding it in a certain type of regard and why we should be pushing our energies towards that. But not just only the EAC, we'll be looking at state politics and how they affect the region. This is, of course, the East African countries. Now, this morning, I am very, very happy and excited to be joined by, I'm pretty sure, the most deserving person to be giving us more information and educating us this morning when it comes to the East African community and all its affairs. This morning, I am joined by Honorable Margaret Ziwa Nantongo. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable, this morning.
Thank you, Philomena.
Well, she has served in different capacities. Well, number one, she did serve as the Speaker of the 3rd East African Legislative Assembly in Arusha, Tanzania, and she's also a former member of parliament, but also she's very big, especially when it comes to advocating for women movements, women empowerment. I am sure you've heard her name somewhere. So she's here, and I do believe that she comes in the right capacity to create for us a picture, especially about the topic we'll be having. And feel free to be part of the conversation. Make use of our WhatsApp platform 0709-602-592 for any questions, any clarification. But also you could go to Twitter, use the hashtag UBCGMU and let us know. Well, the topic, impact of state politics in the region. How do they impact us economically, politically, and socially? And of course, we'll be talking about a few other things there. For example, the EAC Political Confederation. Where are we, or what's failing us to get to where we would love to be? All of this we'll be sharing this morning. Well, Honorable, we're going to go right into it. The East African community, maybe for more clarity for the viewer. What is it? Why is it relevant? Why do we need to value the EAC? What does it bring to the table for us as Ugandans and also other different East African countries?
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. First and foremost, the East African community is the intergovernment arrangement which the initially 3 states, but later on 5 states, and now 8 states have agreed to cooperate in the areas of economic, social, political, and cultural, and other affairs, to make sure that it gives chance to the peoples of East Africa, to explore the benefits and other advantages of them being together. We are talking about, today I think we are coming to about 178 million East Africans. And these people put together create a very potential market. And in there, we expect ourselves to be trading amongst each other and exploring some of the basic natural resources, ecotourism, amongst others. This arrangement started with the signing of the East African Community Treaty, which normally is known as the re-establishment of the East African Community. Why re-establishment? Because it was once in existence, 1967 to 1977, and it collapsed. So in 1999, 2000, the first 3 East African states re-engaged themselves and were able to sign the East African Community Treaty. In there were commitments to the path which the East African Community integration will take, notably the customs union, the common market, the monetary union, and ultimately the political federation. That is stipulated in Article 5 of the treaty. And in there was also established organs which are going to help in implementing this integration process. This process is expected, or is based on what I would call consultative and dialogue processes. Various levels, right from the state, heads of state, to Council of Ministers, to now what we call our parliament, the East African Legislative Assembly, to the East African Court of Justice, and other institutions of the East African community, for instance, the East African Lake Victoria Basin Commission, the East African, many others, yes. ASOA, all these who assist in the various areas of integration to ensure that they are able to enhance or to drive the process faster than it should be. Of course, there are others which are not directly within the government, like the East African Business Council, where others, East African Law Society, where other parties come in to facilitate, to promote this integration process. Okay. A lot has been done, actually, I should mention, yes, that a lot has been done. Definitely, putting together these 6 now East African Community partner states is a very big achievement. And it has been concerned with a lot of issues, some general trade to date, and free movement of people, which you visibly know that is one of the most visible aspect within the East African Community integration. People can freely move from one country to another. That's actually we're able for us as Ugandans, yes, to push for the issuance of the national identity cards, because you are an East African, but you are domiciled in Uganda, and you are regarded as such. And from there, trade, production and trade within the partner states would be treated as the same. Yes. If you produce something in Uganda, you can freely trade it to Kenya, to Tanzania, now to Rwanda, to Burundi, to DRC, to South Sudan. And that in effect boosted both the intra-trade and the inter-trade. And the incomes, the GDP was bolstered. And in most cases, I would say that this has been going on very well. You know very well, for instance, the trade between Uganda and South Sudan, the trade between Kenya and Uganda. It's a traditional trade area, but it was able to be bolstered. And also now it used to be looped from Kenya to Uganda, but now there is also from Uganda to Kenya. To Kenya, yes. Of course, Tanzania, there has been a lot of trade amongst others, but also other areas greatly improved. The area of political and security and peace was able to be improved greatly. You know, what we normally call the Northeast Trade Bloc. Yes. Rather, the Northeast Peace Bloc. Where there is Karamoja, the Turukanas, there used to be a lot of, I should call it, intra-conflict among us tribes, or among us different tribes, ethnicities, the GA, the Pokot, the Turukanas. You know, that a lot has been handled, particularly even when you look at what has been looked at as common facilities, education, health, amongst others, of course, including the famine situation, which is normally an endemic in those areas. Of course, on this other side, you know very well, our trade between Uganda and DRC, yes, has always been very, very good. And now what is being handled are the issues of peace and security, which definitely are still challenging, because of the fact that there has been a colonial history in the DRC Congo, where maybe because of the loose state holding, yes, or state holding, there has been a lot of infiltration in terms of I don't want to use the word banditry, but I think it can be used in this kind of situation. Okay. And a lot of effort now is being done. But more so, even where partner states have not had good working relationships amongst themselves. For instance, between Rwanda and Burundi, for a while there was a bit of conflict.
Yes.
It has been addressed under the East African Peace and Security Forum, and at least we are moving ahead. And also we know our common stand that if we don't come together, we are actually at threat. Many other countries are likely or are bound to come in. When I say those superpowers are bound to come into East Africa, and of course explore our disjointedness.
Okay. Now, Honorable, getting straight to the topic of discussion, the impact of state politics in the region. Of course, I'll talk about this in reference to what happened in Nairobi recently after we saw the demonstrations that were being led by Raila Odinga, the leader of the opposition. And we would love to know, how do all these differences in politics, especially political affairs of different countries, affect the region as a whole? You know what they say, of course, as Uganda, we suffer economically to the biggest percentage, and very many other countries that entirely rely. We are looking at Rwanda, we are looking at Burundi, to mention but a few. But if you could create for us a picture, how does this affect the entire region as a whole?
It's unfortunate that what is going on in Kenya is happening. Certainly, they took the path of democracy. They went to the polls, and they were able to elect their leaders. Definitely, in any election, you would appreciate that there will be a loser and a winner.
Yes.
But of course, the way how the loser or the winner handles the post-election situation is always a very, very delicate situation. Of course, this is not the first time we've had hiccups in Kenya. You may recall in 2008, 2008, in 2012, things were not very good. There was a lot of skirmishes here and there, and there was a lot of blockages of the road, people burning tires, people attacking traders, amongst others. And I would have said that, I would have imagined that we have overgrown it, or we've overcome it, because now it's evidently known that the communication between Mombasa and say Busia or Malaba is not necessarily Kenyan. It's for the whole intra-Castrine regions. Now, because of that, you find that this current situation which is happening, it is first and foremost creating uncertainty amongst many traders. Definitely many would not want to venture areas where there are people are on the streets, because once people are on the streets, it's very difficult to predict what side of that of the divide, that kind of they may say peaceful demonstration, but
yes,
definitely nobody would, since it's a demonstration, nobody may guide.
I mean, we had very many shops in Kenya actually closed down, if you remember very well, last week, even if it was going to be a peaceful demonstration.
Exactly, because and in most cases, if it's a demonstration, there is no even insurance to take responsibility or to take compensation. So you find that definitely it will slow down business. The business trust or confidence will be eroded. Even the movement of the people, which is a key ingredient in the integration process, will be eroded. People will say, oh, I'm not going to Kenya, not now, or maybe we'll postpone, among us others. So I think it's not just even I think, but it's not good for the East African community integration. And I think all means should be employed to make sure that people are able to sit on the table and see what are those areas which really are being contested. But of course, I'm happy that for Kenya, they even had an opportunity to go to court.
Yes. And
court was able to pronounce itself on those areas of doubt. And since it did, I think we may need to pray among us ourselves that the winning team and the the losing team may need to come again on table and say, what is the challenge?
Yes.
What are your bargaining areas? Where can we improve? Because definitely at some point there will be a leader and those to follow. So 5 years is good time. We may have to plead with those who feel that they need to be given chance to say prepare.
Yes.
Prepare in the next 5 years. We'll be able to maybe to have a change within the governance.
Well, this morning on GMU Agenda, we're with Honorable Margaret Ziwa Nantongo, talking about the East African community, looking at the impact of state politics in the region. Now, speaking of this, we do have the ESC Federation and the ESC Confederation. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, the first Deputy Prime Minister and also the Minister for ESC Affairs, that is Honorable Kadaga, came out to announce that it may not be possible to achieve the the loose ESC Confederation by 2024. And I mean, if you remember very well, several partner states had put 2024 as a target to achieve this confederation. And she came out and said, this may be a little bit hard. And of course, this again is to look at the bigger picture of the ESC Federation. Now, if you could probably take us to the challenges, what is happening? Why are we not able to meet that target? But also maybe to give more clarity on what the ESC Federation is and the East African Community Confederation.
Certainly, you'll appreciate that every country has its sovereignty, which includes, amongst others, its own constitution, its own political setup. Some may take the path of Republican approach. Others may take the approach of the Westminster approach. When I mention these terminologies, they may imply that, of course, the Westminster parliamentarians, there's an election and parliamentarians take the biggest party would bring its leader as the head of state. Likewise, the Republican comes in with voting for the president right from the grassroots. We may have some states having the bicameral approach to legislation. They may have an upper house and a lower house. Others still have the unicameral, like we do have here.
Yes.
Now, when the sovereignty would mean that constitution of our country or the individual country actually is the supreme law of the land.
Yes.
And and they have institutions and organizations and organs which govern the three pillars of government, amongst others, are not subdued or subjected to any other supreme or other bigger or higher authority.
Yes.
Now, the East African Federation, which was envisaged in Article 5 of the treaty, which actually in the phrasing is and ultimately a political federation. It is the process through which the partner states will surrender their sovereignty to a higher authority, and they will have what I may call residue or lower authority over their territory. And most of what would be like issues of, for instance, security, issues of national security or regional security would be surrendered to the higher authority, amongst others. And
the higher being the central for the central government for the East African region. Yes.
Now, of course, there are lower ingredients which had to be handled. And these are the ones which have been handled throughout the process. For instance, the process of the customs union, which was bringing together the trade arrangements, creating a free trade area, making sure that all the East Africans are at the same level of trading And whether you are from one country to another, you will be treated. If you go to Kenya, you will be paying exactly the same taxes as the Kenyan, and
yes.
vice versa. Not saying that, oh, since you are Ugandan and coming in Kenya, you are a different nationality. So treating them equally. Now, you find that after the customs union and the common market, we went to the third pillar. The protocol was signed in 2013, the monetary union, and the process is on, making sure that the institution, for instance, of what we may call the central bank, the East African Currency Center, is on, and this in itself, now we have consultations among us, our financial policies. That's why you find that when we had to do our budget, the East African Community ministers meet first, and they see at what levels of, for instance, tax, VAT, among us others, export tax, import tax, among us others, what levels have been agreed upon. And then these are the ones which are brought or which are integrated in what we call our national budget. Now, 2024 is looked at as one of the cut-off point where it was envisaged that many aspects within the monetary union would be achieved, including the common currency. Actually, it was envisaged that by 2024 we should have the common currency.
Yes.
And of course, that was the process which was now ushering us to the ultimately political federation. But in 2020, 2017, 2016, 2017, it was discussed and realized that maybe before we think, or other than thinking about the political federation, let's think about confederating.
Yes. Now,
the ingredients are slightly different, or not different per se, but they are not at the higher notch of the federation.
So confederation is like a subject matter of the federation.
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, in there, there were aspects like the East African Constitution.
Yes.
Which was at the time being mooted, and it was being thought about. And of course, this had come out after looking through the approaches. You remember initially there was also a view that let's fast track the political federation, rather the East African Community integration.
Yes.
And there was the WACO Commission, which went around to find out from the East Africans whether they are ready to fast track. And mainly Tanzania said, let's go step by step, because every step we take, let's think through it and be able to say, yes, this is agreeable, yes, this can be done, yes, this can be achieved. Even to those who are relatively slower, when I say slower, you can look at it as a race. There is always one who goes a little ahead, another one who comes behind. It's not a matter of saying we have won. No, everybody must be on board as we go along. So it was at that juncture they said, we may not be able to take because there were two approaches which were thought about. Let's first achieve the federation and work inside the bits and pieces which have not yet been fully addressed. But of course at that juncture they said, no, let us first go step by step. Let's go the customs union. Let's see the limitations, the difficulties, among us others. Let's go to the common market. Let's later on go to the monetary union and go ultimately to the political federation.
So these were
now
all
the political federation. These are the pillars, or these are the building blocks to the full political integration. Now, at that time, many other things happened, because in Article 3, it's also mentioned that any other country who is a neighbor to the East African Community partner state may apply to join the East African Community, provided they are able to conform and to be subjected to the objectives of the East African community. And they are able to embrace them and move forward with them. So because of that, you see that after that, at the point, Rwanda and Burundi joined the East African community. And later on now, South Sudan joined. And now DRC has joined. And later on, we expect Somalia to be on board. Now, when a country joins also, there are three things which must happen. The East African Community Secretariat goes in the partner state, that partner state, to actually see the preparedness of that country, looking at its institutions, governance institutions like parliament, like executive itself, like the security agencies, among us others, like the trade institutions, including, for instance, the Uganda Revenue Authority, the Ministries of Finance, the Ministries of Education, among us others. So the ministry, the East African Community Secretariat goes into that partner state to help them to make sure that the institutions are built, are firm, and they are able to join. As they join, they are able to fuse properly into the community. Now, they did it for Rwanda. And when you join as is. Don't say that, oh, by the time I've come in, I found you at stage 3 of the monetary union. May you give me chance to first go through common market, customs union, and then I say, then I will come in to the monetary, catch up where you are. No, you join where you are, where we are, and then you are able to work backwards, knowing that, for instance, the tax regime in the East African region is like this. Let me also make my tax regime to that effect.
To standardize it.
To standardize it. Maybe, for instance, now we know, for instance, that all our educational levels are subjected to the East African Council of Education, and they should be able to come into your institutions to say, if you award, for instance, a bachelor's degree in law, will it be equivalent to the bachelor's degree in law of Makerere University, of University of Dar es Salaam, of University of Nairobi? Because what we are envisaging, that if you have graduated from a university within East Africa, you can actually be able to be employed anywhere in the East African region at the same level, not say being looked at as maybe a lower level. So subjecting to that, many of the countries who have just joined, the process actually is not yet completed. For instance, the process of DRC has not been fully completed. The process of Somalia has not been approved even. And that means that even if we move to the Confederation in 2024, a lot of, or many of these new partner states will not actually be ready to yet enter that very critical stage of integration. So I think that's why now there is this thought that we may not be ready in 2024.
All right. Well, Honorable, of course, as we're coming to the end of this, very, very briefly, what do you think, what contribution can member states do, especially when it comes to creating peace at the end of the day, on all fronts, because we need that peace. It really, it builds onto our political affairs, it builds into our economic affairs, our social affairs. So briefly, what contribution can be done by different leaderships from different member states of the EAC?
First and foremost, let me thank the leaders, the heads of state, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and other heads of states. They have done a lot of sacrifice, understanding, giving in to many aspects to make the East African community actually exist. I would say that at some point there's still some wish of holding on sovereignty. In some situations, people still come and say, "Oh, for us as Uganda, for us as Kenya," they come in to sort of like still feel, what do we gain? What do we get out of this? You see it severally when we go into what we call negotiations, seeing to how do we go forward from here, and people say, for instance, for us as Rwanda, for us as Burundi, for us as Tanzania, sisi wa Tanzania, what do we get out of this?
Yes.
So I think one of the things we must graduate in is accepting to ease or to release the sovereignty and cede some of that power to the, to the regional level, so that we are able to integrate more freely. Areas of security seem to be progressing a little faster than other areas, but still subjecting the warring parties is still feels a bit of a challenge. When you say, for instance, the conflict between the conflict on the border between Uganda, DRC, Rwanda, DRC, and maybe Burundi, that conflict seems like maybe at some point we still need maybe another non either East African state or another state within East Africa, which is not within the warring area, to come in. So for instance, Tanzania, can you come and help? For instance, Kenya, can you come and help? Would have a situation where those warring parties would say, for the common good of this, for the good of East Africa, let's not proceed with this war, let's not handle this in this manner.
At the bigger part.
Let's look at the bigger part. So we have not really achieved that, yet it's critical because once you are a partner state, once you are a state of the East African community, it means that you are going to treat each other. These known borders, which were handed over to us by, yesterday I was looking at one of a sentient tweet, somebody tweeted and said, Auntie Betty, that Auntie Betty handed over these colonial borders. People still hold to them and feel that, oh, this is Uganda. You remember the Mijingo? So small an issue, but it sparked all the aggression and the adder in people's blood, and they wanted to bring out guns and all that. So this is where we must now look at it, whether the Jingo belongs to Uganda or to Kenya. The people who are there are both Ugandans and Kenyans. Let it be treated like that. So I want to say that as we proceed, let's continue to talk to each other. Let's continue to surrender levels of sovereignty or bits of sovereignty to the regional level, and that will help us to make sure that we become one block, because we know the advantages of becoming one block, including protection or protecting ourselves against the superpowers who are anxious to actually come and swallow us up and take over what we actually yearn to call ours.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for stopping by. Definitely, I'll be excited to have you again as we have a more expanded conversation on this.
Thank you.
But true to what you say, the physical boundaries are not bigger than the common goal we have for ourselves as the East African community member states. So that shouldn't be one of the biggest challenges we are having. We have a common goal, and we should be looking forward to that as a block. We'll leave it at that. We do have Molen coming in with the sports updates, and later on we'll be having GMU Extra. Well, allow me to wish you a wonderful and very productive week ahead. I am Philomena Masco. Good morning, Uganda.